Coach Griffin. We'll go ahead and start with game number.
Hey, Greg. How would you assess your performance from first half to second half tonight?
Look, I thought most of the night a little disconnected in terms of our positions and specifically kind of in our midfield and where we needed to be and when we needed to be there. I felt like we weren't very dynamic in the front half of the field. So, and when we were getting forward and getting into forward positions, we weren't really turning kind of advancing possessions into attacks because I felt like it was a little bit stagnant and we were not as dynamic as what we've seen obviously in the past. So just in terms of breaking of the team and things like that, I just felt like we weren't very dynamic on that side of things. In the build, again, I think between our midfield and between the guys in the build, I felt like we just weren't positioning where we needed to be when we need to be there and showing up and working off of each other. We just looked a little disjointed, and that means maybe we weren't prepared for where we needed to be with the new additions that were sliding into the group. We looked, like I said, it didn't look like a team that just won the championship. It looked like a team that's fitting some things together still, and that's what it felt like tonight. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, the game turns on a mistake. It was what it was in the between the boxes and all that. It was a bit of a, as I said to the guys, it was going to be a cat and mouse game because they like to draw you out. They're very good in possession. They're close together. We saw that in Coachella. So organizing the recovery of the ball isn't always so easy because they are in good spots and they move the ball pretty quickly. So there wasn't a ton in it until we made the error. We go down 1-0 and then things start to open up and change a little bit as we start to push forward. Things like that start to happen. So I thought towards the end when we had some urgency in our game, we started to get a little more dynamic. We started to move a little bit more, break lines with our runs, get to the end line. We see some good balls cut back. We started to see again some more things that look like real opportunities, I think, in the latter part of the game.
That happened when you brought on Elijah and I think Miguel and Ruben. Any second thought of maybe starting? Those guys probably could have started. Or what was your thought process there?
Maybe it's. Whenever you lose a game, you can always have second thoughts. That's easy, but. Yeah, if it was Elijah's running and his power, it would have been his first MLS game too. It's you're kind of gauging that. With Lucas, a little more, maybe a touch more experienced, but also I think when he came in, it's a whole new setting and surroundings and things like that for him to get used to. So just with Elijah, we thought Elijah coming in, he would bring some power to the game and some running. And with Miguel is certainly more of a runner, and Christian's more of a link-up player, and Miguel's more of a runner. And as I said, I felt like we needed a little bit something more dynamic and that was going to stretch and go behind and try to force their back line into more decisions than we were giving them in the early part of the game. So those guys came on. I think Ruben came on and he was good in good spots. And he knows what we're trying to do. At that time, I just think also for Marco, he hadn't gone past 45 minutes in preseason. We also had to be mindful of how long we're trying to push him in the grand scheme of things. It's still the first game, so.
Hey, Greg. Obviously, before the game, the team was out there for to see the trophy come back, the fireworks go off, the banner.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys have been talking about there's a target on your back this year that winning the first time it's much more difficult to win the second time. And I'm wondering if this is, I don't want to say a wake-up call, but if this sort of reinforces that people are not going to lie down for you guys, that you have to prove everything all over again.
Yeah, I believe that's true. I also believe that the Galaxy, you're always going to probably get everybody's best shot. Everybody likes to beat the Galaxy, and because of the club that it is, that's something you deal with all the time. I think being champion for sure. I think part of it is we had some significant changes over the course of the off season that we've got to settle our group in and really figure out exactly how this group is going to be successful. At the moment without Gabe, without the guys that we have, which is something we need to adapt to, starting with me and the guys as well, and integrate guys in, because again, I think it looked a little disjointed and it didn't look like we were ready for what the situation was. And so yeah, we've got to continue to build and prepare and get better with each training session each day and be more ready for the next one than we were tonight. Each guy understanding their positions and the roles a little bit clearer than we were. So, but back to your point, yeah, I think being champion is very difficult to go back-to-back in this league, and teams are going to give you their best, especially a new franchise that's down the street that's been preparing for this moment for years now, and they certainly came out with the right energy and emotion and had a good game. Good credit to them. They've done a lot of good work in a short period of time.
Craig, on the first goal with Amiro and Novak,
Yeah.
what would you like to see happen there? Is that more of a mistake on Novak's part, or are you looking at Amiro there for slips? Do you not want that ball played in the air where it's at?
I feel like Novak was under as much pressure as it looked like he did when he hit the ball. So for Novak to maybe be a little bit calmer, to deliver a pass that's a little more friendly. At the point that it arrived at Amiro, I think it was almost more self-defense than it was, trying to actually do something with it. He was just trying to bring it down. The whole thing just felt a little bit rushed, and it didn't really need to be. And we saw that at times, I felt like, through the course of the game, where there were a lot of what I call for our group uncharacteristically sort of unforced errors through the course of the game. Choices that just didn't sometimes make sense to me. We were hitting long balls when we have easy solutions. That's why I say it looked a little bit, not settled. And that's something that, again, we have to keep taking steps forward there.
And then last year, you guys had this unbeaten streak at the Daniel Sports Park, and that's gone in the first game.
What I said in the locker room, yeah.
Yeah, how does the team feel about that? Is that something that you can do anything about? Do you build off that? Do you use that as a rallying cry?
I mean, it's just a fact at this point, and I said to him, this can't happen. Like, this is where we get points. This is where we win. We established that as something that was very important to us and something we did last year, but we don't lose at home. And so, is it a rallying cry? It's a wake-up call, I guess, as all of them are, but it's just, we've got to be more prepared, we've got to be better, especially at home, but we've got to be better, and we've got to build ourselves into the season. So, as I said, the integration of our group and the understanding of playing at home versus playing on the road, all those things need to be tightened up.
Hey, Greg, thanks for talking to us. After a pretty good preseason from Diego, he didn't really see a lot of the ball, especially in the second half. Was that by design, trying to get Gabby Peck into the game a little bit?
No, I think a lot of it's positional things that I didn't like about how we were set up. I felt like there was a lot of times where Diego's a little bit on an island on the outside, and he didn't have support around him and somebody that he could play off of and work with. I felt like the spot and the position that was supposed to be there to helping was constantly leaving and moving into other areas of the field, trying to find ways to get involved in the game. And so in the first half, we were trying to adjust maybe who might be in that gap to help him. So I just felt like he was isolated a lot, and that was, that's something that, again, has to improve in all of this stuff where I didn't see the isolation during the course of preseason, and then we get to the game, and then things start, people are moving and trying to get involved in ways that break sort of the structure and change sort of the picture of what's supposed to be happening. So that's something that has to be worked, because Diego out there on his own is not gonna accomplish the things that we need Diego to accomplish. He's a guy who plays in collaboration with 2 or 3 other players, and he's a guy who connects and combines and runs off of and does very smart tactical things. He's not a guy who's going to go one-on-one and dominate his side on his own. So again, I go into structurally some things that we hadn't seen in preseason. I felt like we saw some of those things tonight, and those are things that have to be cleaned up.
Hey Greg, at the start you mentioned a little bit of the lack of dynamism. I just wanted to ask you just your levels of confidence that, this is maybe some growing pains in the season. Just your confidence you guys can improve on that as the season goes on, and are you scared that this might be the new normal for the team?
I'm not scared. I think it's adding some new players. It's the profiles of the players sometimes that are out there and making sure we find the right balance of guys who can give us some stretch and guys who are looking for between the lines. I felt like that balance was off. I thought early on, and then we kept, you know, uncharacteristically were making mistakes. We weren't great in possession, and then we weren't dynamic ahead of the possession that, you know, that would turn normal possessions into attacks and dangerous opportunities. So I don't think it's a normal. I think it's this group. It's going to be the growing pains of this group, and you know, not having a guy like Joe changes how dynamic you are at the top and others. So you know, it's something we're going to have to be very mindful of to make sure that it doesn't become a habit. It's something that we adjust. And it was one of my potential concerns of the day, if I'm being honest, coming into the game, was going to be how dynamic and how vertical we would actually be at the top.
Rodrigo?
Hey Greg, sorry if you already answered this, but is there a timetable on Ricky's return and Joseph?
Ricky, I wouldn't even bother trying to figure out. He's still far enough away that it's not even worth guessing. I mean, it's months, so it doesn't even, I don't know, matter at this point. With Joseph, I don't know exactly. I would say probably still a few weeks. You know, we'll try to make sure that he hasn't had enough preseason under his belt either. So this is going to be a kind of a process for him. We want this to be his only injury of the season, so we need to make sure we take our time and do this. So we're going to do it right. So.
Greg, real quick follow-up on Nascimento. When do you expect him available, visa, all that fun stuff?
I'm optimistic, and I think he would be available by next weekend. It's just a visa issue, and I think it should get done hopefully this week. We were kind of hoping it would be done before the game, so I suspect it will probably get done next week.
All right, thank you for your time, Greg.
All right, thanks again.
Thank you, Greg.
We will be next joined shortly by a player.